Oh, sorry, I forgot I'm supposed to be filming. I just passed out because I'm reviewing Nexus, which is like the most boring book I've ever read. Oh yeah, I'm Laura and this is tropetrinitytrilogy, and today I'll be reviewing Nexus. So I was going to dress up like Queen Nora for this video since I dressed up like Andi for my first review. Links below. However, I don't care enough to dress up like Nora, to be honest. And the most accurate themed outfit for this book would be pajamas, because this book put me to sleep. So yeah, to give you some info about this book, it's book 2 in the Androma saga by Sasha Alsberg, the big booktuber from Book Utopia, and Lindsay Cummins, an already established author. And so to give you the blurb for this book, her ship is gone. Her crew is captured. A notorious mercenary, Androma Rosella, is no longer the powerful bloody baroness, but a fugitive ruthlessly hunted across the Mirabel galaxy. The bloodthirsty Queen Nora now rules the most of the galaxy through a mind-controlled toxin, and she'll stop at nothing to destroy her most hated adversary. Andi will risk anything, even her precious freedom, to find a cure, standing with her unlikely ally Dex on the unforgiving ice planet of Solera. Their plan to infiltrate Black Market City proves dangerously irresistible. Back in Arcadius, Nora's actions have opened the Mirabel to invasion. As Andi's crew fights to regain their freedom, Andi and Dex discover a threat far greater than anything they've faced before. Only by saving their mortal enemy can the crew of the Marauder make one last desperate strike to save the galaxy, unaware that a shattering centuries-old secret may demand the most wrenching sacrifice of all. Dun dun! Whoever wrote this blurb, much better than the actual book. So this book did improve on Zenith in some ways, but it got worse in others. So full spoilers, because who really cares about spoilers when it comes to this book? Let's just talk. Number 1, this book did improve on the writing of Zenith. The clunky and excessive similes of Zenith are no more. And instead, the writing of this book is very straightforward and basic YA writing. Nothing special, but nothing worth complaining about either. It's kind of just there. I will say I did like the line, "Jagged ice mountains like splintered bones were scattered across the landscape." That is a good simile in my opinion. Maybe not the best one, but I enjoyed it. I like imagining giant bones across the landscape. Number 2, the plot and pacing of this book are terrible. This book is 400 pages of a waste of my time. Nothing happens. I gave Zenith 1 star, but at least it entertained me with some dumb, fun entertainment. This book was just dumb with no entertainment or fun. In Zenith, there's a ship chase, a bar fight, a prison break, a shipwreck, a party, an attack, and then stealing a ship to escape, and then another party and another attack. They go to an asteroid belt, a moon, and 3 different planets. Along with the main adventure storyline, a villain plot, a mysterious past storyline, the book had actual things happening in it. The book was a mess, but there was a cool story beneath the poor execution. Nexus has none of that. Andi goes from the middle of nowhere to one planet, where they coincidentally meet the rebels that they need to find right away, and then they're all killed off by some random ass ice dragon that has nothing to do with anything. The book could have had Nora's brainwashed soldiers come and attack them and been cohesive with the overall plot, but instead they do the thing where the rebels are like, "We've been out here 1,000 times and we've never seen the ice dragon, and we survived out here all the time. First time the heroes come, ice dragon comes, attacks, kills off all the characters the authors don't feel like writing about anymore. And then the characters just go and find some random resistant base pretty easily on the same ice planet, and then they just do nothing for the rest of the book until the end, where they're like, "We better leave for the climax," and then there's one fight. That isn't that good. Yay! This whole book is just characters sitting around doing nothing. I mean, I guess they talk, but the characters are pretty boring, what they're talking about is boring, and I don't care. Number 3, like Zenith, this book was padded out in length by excessive and repetitive point of views and by just repetitiveness within single point of views too. However, while Zenith had 6 perspectives, and I argued it only needed 2, and in reality only needed 1, but I would have enjoyed it with 2. Nexus had 5 perspectives, and it only needed 0 because nothing happens. This book is only this long because of unnecessary scenes and repetition, and honestly, after reading this duology, it would have been better as a single book with only 1 or 2 point of views. And also if the point of views were better written. There is one scene where Andi's in the rebel base and she's thinking about how surprised she is that they have nice food. And another character comes up to Andi and is like, aren't you surprised that we have nice food? And Andi is like, yes, I am surprised that you have nice food. And I'm just like, please stop. Please stop. I don't care. It's some real riveting stuff, guys. Number 4. Andi is retconned to be not a murderer. My first video, I had a massive rant about how much I hate Andi. This book is like, you know that character we wrote last time? Let's pretend she didn't just leave a woman who never killed anyone on a meteor to die from the elements just for money. Let's pretend she didn't do that. Like, listen to this quote.
Kidnapped a rich Solaran's mistress and left her on a meteor, the job requested by the man's furious wife. She paid a pretty penny for their services. It wasn't until days later that they found out the woman was not only a mistress, but a prominent politician's daughter from Tenebris. The politician tore the galaxy apart looking for his daughter. When he eventually found her withered corpse on that barren rock, word got back about who put her there.
However, in chapter 12 of Nexus, this is what Andi thinks.
Andi had a code that she obeyed fiercely, the way a soldier obeyed a commanding officer's orders. No death blow, unless the enemy was endangering the life of Andi and her crew. She would never lift her sword to harm an innocent. But when they entered Kratia, it was possible that nearly everyone would be trying to kill or capture her and Dex. Yet under normal circumstances, none of them would blink an eye as the two of them walked through the streets. The thought made her wonder whether other unaffecteds shared that opinion, whether or not they felt any hesitation or remorse over killing Nor's mindless followers, even in self-defense.
Do you see the inconsistency there? They just retconned her not to be a murderer. They're like, oh, she only kills in self-defense? Did you read the first book you wrote? Did you forget what you wrote? Or do you think I'm stupid enough that I forgot it? Because I didn't forget. So either you did or you really underestimated your entire audience's intelligence by thinking no one would notice that. And then to top it off, right after that contradictory retcon right there, Andi immediately thinks about how she wants to murder everyone that Nor is brainwashing.
If she stood here any longer, staring at the people, staring at the massive hologram of her enemy, she might very well rush into the writhing crowd and tear everyone apart, limb from limb. Or she'd unzip Havoc and let him loose in the hope that, with everyone she took down, she could somehow weaken Nor bit by bit. 1,000,000 tallies on her swords. 1,000,000 deaths to mourn at her own hands.
I'm okay. And then at the end of the book, the only way to ensure the galaxy will never be destroyed is for Andi to die. And so she decides she's going to sacrifice herself in the most poorly written self-sacrifice scene ever. She takes a knife and slowly raises it to her throat over paragraphs and paragraphs while other people are doing other things. And then as she raises it to her throat, POV switch to a different character. It switches to Valen's perspective, and then Valen sees Andi slowly bringing the blade to her throat, and he thinks about how
only the bravest, the most selfless leader would do such a thing.
And so Valen is like, hey Andi, you don't have to kill yourself, and then he has her kill him instead because he self-sacrifices instead. It's really stupid. But I just wanted to point that out because barf, the blatant ass-kissing by the authors of their own protagonist is terrible, and it made me physically ill. Number 5. The relationships in this book are all shallow and one note. The only exception might be Valen and Nor. Their brother and sister relationship in this book were the most dynamic and interesting relationship in the book. Some of their interactions were meaningful and well written. However, with the plot surrounding them being so dull and every character that ever interacted with them being so flat, it was really hard to care about the few scenes that could have packed a punch in a better written book. And even then, Valen and Nor constantly described themselves as dark, and it was so cringy. Part of the reason why I enjoyed Nor in book one is that despite being the antagonist character, she wasn't evil. She wanted to genuinely help her people and was doing what she did to save them. Now, taking over the world and killing other innocent people from different planets was bad, but she was a complex villain that was motivated by something good. However, by the end of that book, they made her flat, and in this book, they fully embraced it for both of the characters. The authors made them into card-carrying villains where they really shouldn't have been. Nor kept referring to herself as the Dark Queen of Darkness, and Valen would refer to her as his Dark Queen and think of his mind as a dark castle, and it was terrible. Now they're just pure evil, and the book ruined the complexity Nor once had. And even then, the better scenes between the characters weren't consistent. So at one point in the book, Nor's boyfriend Zahn gets killed in a battle when Valen pushes Nor out of the way from a bullet, and the bullet ends up hitting Zahn, and Nor blames him because she's an idiot. But anyway, she blames Valen for Zahn's death, and there's a scene where Valen is asking for forgiveness, and we're in Nor's head. And Nor's saying him, no, I won't forgive you. I can't forgive you. And she's thinking in her head, I can't forgive him. Then the next scene where they interact is from Valen's point of view. And in that scene, he's saying he's going to sacrifice himself for their cause. And Nor is like, no, you can't do that. I love you. I forgive you. I forgave you before I even refused to forgive you. And it's like, no, you didn't. We were in your head. We knew you were thinking you couldn't forgive him. So why are you lying? Did you think I forgot that quickly too? First you think I forgot that Andi murdered people all the time, and now you think I forgot that she said she couldn't forgive him in her own head? Like, we know it's not true. Stupid. Also, Valen's perspective was the most boring perspective in the entire book. I was constantly spacing out during his scenes, especially the ones in his head when he was thinking about mind controlling people, because it was just him in his head imagining a castle and slowly walking to the imaginary castle for like 20 minutes, and it was terrible and boring. I kept spacing out and then having to rewind the audiobook because I wasn't paying attention. And you know, after rewinding and listening, I could have just not rewound because it was pointless. Number 6, all the side characters in this book were pretty flat. In fact, every character in this book besides Andi, Nor, Valen, and Dex don't even do anything. Lyra, who's important in book 1, just exists to be brainwashed. And the entire crew, in fact, are all just brainwashed, and their whole point is to be a plot device for Andi needs to save them. So yeah, there's not good side characters in this book. Also, on a side note, I remember at the beginning of the book, there's a scene where they describe Gilly's drawings, and Gilly is like the 11-year-old twerp character on the ship. They describe the drawings she left on the ship, and they're of murdered, decapitated people. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, they made this child crazy. And it's like, it's played off as cute or something. But in reality, these pirate girls just made one of the other characters a child soldier for them. And that child is severely messed up. And the fact that this is played off as funny really highlights the lack of depth that this book and its characters have. Number 7, the way the authors handle killing off good guys in this book is really terrible, because either they kill them off in a way that you can clearly tell that they're just killing them because they don't feel like writing them anymore, or the characters have extreme plot armor to the point where it is unrealistic. So, for example, when Andi first arrives on the ice planet, she arrives with Lon, who is Lyra's brother, who is a character introduced like near the end, maybe halfway through the first book, and he really didn't do much and wasn't that important. Then in this book, he's with them, they go to the planet, they meet a bunch of rebels, and then a random ass ice dragon appears, kills all the rebels, and then Lon has to heroically sacrifice himself to save them. And instead of me caring, it was like, oh, you didn't want to write these characters, did you? Didn't feel like writing the rebels, didn't feel like writing Lon anymore. So it's like, kill them off, great. And then later on in the book, there's a scene where Nor threatens Andi and she's like, you better come and bring yourself so I can use the bombs or I will kill your crew. And to prove her point, she goes to kill Lyra, the first crewmate. And Lyra is brutally killed on camera and Andi's like, oh my goodness. And then in the next scene, we see from Lyra or Nor's point of view, I don't remember. But we see through one of their point of views and Lyra is just fine and they faked her murder. And it's like, oh, okay. So Nor is the one who's less likely to kill people, and Andi's the psycho murderer. Great, good to take notes. But it could have been something maybe Nor didn't want to kill the people who had been brainwashed to love her because she saw them actually in a genuine way as her own people, even if they were forced to be her people against their will. But that's never explored. It just feels like the authors really cared about Lyra and didn't want her to die. Well, I didn't care about Lyra, so even if they had killed her off, I wouldn't have cared. And I wouldn't have believed it if they killed her off. So, yeah. Number 8. One character that was improved in this book was Dex. In book 1, Dex was the most inconsistent character I've ever read. Every single scene he was in, he was a completely different person. Sometimes within a scene, he became flip-flopped back and forth as different people, and it was really poorly done. In this book, they decided to make Dex a consistent dork, which was fun and could have been charming if it was in a better book and I actually gave a crap about him. They definitely fully embraced him being a dork, especially in the scene where him and Andi make out, and Andi completely dominates him, which was pretty funny. I'm not sure if that's what they were going for, but I thought it was kind of funny, except I didn't care about the characters, so it wasn't really that interesting, blah, blah, blah. Okay, next point. And finally, the last point, number 9, the brainwashing in this book was inconsistent. So in this book, we get 2 different perspectives of different characters who are brainwashed by the same type of magic. We get Lyra, who is brainwashed by Valen, and then later on we see through Valen's perspective when he is brainwashed by the evil uncle. So when Lyra is brainwashed, it's the type of brainwashing where she believes what she is told to believe or do. So Valen's like, you love Nor, you worship her, she's your queen. Lyra believes all that. She loves Nor, she believes in her, but her actions are her own. So Valen is like, serve your queen to the best of your ability. Lyra is doing it to the best of her ability. What she believes is just altered, but her actions are her own. However, when Valen is brainwashed, he is a prisoner in his own mind. He thinks and believes the exact same things he had always thought and believed, but he cannot control his body. His body moves without his permission. He speaks without wanting to say what is being spoken. So it's like the complete opposite type of brainwashing effect. Like they are just polar opposites, but it's the same type of magic. So it's just inconsistent, poor writing. Yay. Anyway, I have absolutely nothing more to say. In fact, I'm kind of over this book. I had to film this because my phone was destroyed, so I have to get a new one, and this is the second time I filmed it. But even then, I didn't care about this book, and I'm just over it because it was so boring, so it's not as fun to rant about because it's just like a snore fest. Anyway though, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know all your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.